My 13-year-old niece sneered, "Mom says if you vanish tomorrow, nobody would even care," while unboxing the $850 phone I just bought her. 30 guests laughed, everyone except me. I just smiled, nodded, and with 2 taps, wiped everything, cards, bills, subscriptions, all gone. That night, I packed a single black backpack, walked out, and disappeared. The next morning, they found on the porch, and inside was... Have you ever experienced that gut-wrenching moment when a single, casual sentence obliterates your entire perception of reality? When words, sharper than any blade, carve through your defenses, exposing your entire life, your entire family, for precisely what they truly are. That was me, frozen in time, my gaze fixed on my 13-year-old niece. She was methodically peeling the pristine plastic from the $850 phone I had just gifted her, her young face alight with unearned joy. And then my mother's eyes, cold and assessing, met mine as she uttered the fatal blow. If you vanish tomorrow, no one would even register your absence. The cruelest irony? My niece simply tittered a light, dismissive sound. The living room seethed with cacophony. 30 voices, each one aggressively loud, heedlessly careless. This was meant to be a joyous birthday celebration. Yet within my chest, a cold, incandescent rage began to fester. My sister, Lindsay, didn't deign to lift her gaze from her smartphone. Only a faint, knowing smirk played on her lips, as if she'd just witnessed the perfect culmination of her unspoken desires. And Mother? She continued stirring in the kitchen, a feigned unawareness about her, but the subtle lift of her shoulders, a silent, almost imperceptible approval, pierced me more profoundly than any direct insult. Father, however, made no pretense. He simply guffawed, hoisting his beer, and drawled, "Well, she's not wrong." The ripple of laughter that followed felt like a physical assault, spreading contagiously. My cousins exchanged knowing grins. Even Uncle Gary, a peripheral figure in my life, snorted derisively into his drink. I remained rooted, utterly motionless, a monument to my own foolishness. The fool I'd always been, the silent benefactor, the tireless repairman, the one who was perpetually, eternally insufficient. "Thanks for the phone, Uncle," my niece chirped, already nestled against her mother's side, her entire universe now radiating from that new, coveted screen. I watched her, my heart thrumming a frantic beat against my ribs, my face aflame with shame and indignation. The room began to shrink, suffocating me. Yet, not a single word escaped my lips. I merely nodded, because that's what I did. I nodded. I smiled. I pretended, always pretending. Finally, Lindsay's eyes, glinting with a malicious satisfaction, met mine. In that brief, chilling encounter, I saw it, a flicker of triumphant amusement, a pure, unadulterated pleasure in my speechless humiliation. "All right, everyone, let's cut the cake." Mother's voice rang out, unnaturally bright, almost desperate to sweep away the thick tension. But the bitter aftertaste clung to my tongue, a tangible weight. I retreated to the kitchen, leaning against the cool counter as they all converged around the table. Candles flickered, wishes were whispered. I merely observed, my hands clenching in a tight, white-knuckled fists, my jaw aching from its rigid clench. And somewhere beneath the searing pain, something colder, infinitely colder, began to crystallize within me. My phone felt heavy in my pocket. 2 taps. Just 2 quick, decisive taps. Every single bill, every subscription, every credit line I had meticulously set up for them. For Lindsay, for Mother, for Father, all of it dissolved into nothingness. My fingers moved with an almost primal instinct, a muscle memory taking over, making a decision I hadn't even consciously formed until it was irrevocably done. Gone. Just like that. The cacophony of voices blurred into a distant, meaningless hum. The room itself seemed to sway around me, a sea of once familiar faces that now felt utterly alien. They laughed, they cheered, they celebrated, but I wasn't truly there. I was a ghost, haunted by a wallet that no longer existed. I slipped out without a single farewell. Of course, no one noticed. That, ironically, was the one truth my niece had unknowingly spoken tonight. I didn't go home. I drove straight to my apartment, gathered a few necessities, and then a strange impulse compelled me to turn back. An old black backpack, almost forgotten in the darkest corner of my closet, now held a renewed purpose. I filled it, not with my own belongings, not with anything they might expect. And then I returned. Their house still pulsed with noisy chaos. No one registered my quiet reentry, my silent walk down the hallway, my deliberate placement of the backpack beside the stairs. And then I was gone, truly gone. By the time they realized, I would be nothing but an elusive shadow. But inside that backpack, let them discover it. Let them try to comprehend. The ensuing silence did not last. Not even for a moment. I had braced myself for panic, for anger, certainly. But what I received was an absolute explosion. It began the very next morning. I woke to a furious pounding on my apartment door. No polite knocks, no preliminary phone calls, just fists savagely hammering against the wood. Open up. You think you could just do this? It was Father, his voice loud, thick with rage. I remained still, silent, watching the door shudder as if it might rip from its hinges. I know you're in there. You think you're smart? You think you're better than us? His voice cracked, not solely with fury, but with something else entirely. Something I recognized. Fear. I stayed silent. I wasn't playing their twisted game any longer. Eventually, the pounding ceased. I heard his heavy, retreating footsteps, a muffled, guttural curse, then the jarring slam of his car door. But I knew it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed. A text from Mother. Just one stark line. How could you do this to your own family? I didn't reply. An hour later, Lindsay made her attempt. This time a call. I watched her name flash on the screen, letting it ring out again and again. 6 consecutive calls. Finally, a message. You think you're so clever? You think we can't live without you? Fine. See how long you last without a family. I read it, and a slow, cold smile stretched across my lips. Was that meant to be a threat or a desperate, unintentional promise? But the true storm descended that evening. I was just stepping out of the shower when I heard the unmistakable sound of a key turning in my lock. I froze. No one should possess a key to my apartment. No one except them. The door burst open. Father stormed in, his face crimson, beads of sweat glistening on his forehead. Mother trailed behind him, her eyes wide, frantic. You think you could just lock me out? Father bellowed. Get out, I said, my voice unnervingly calm, almost chillingly so. Get out. Get out. This is what you become. Mother's voice rose to a shrill, hysterical pitch. Abandoning your own family. We raised you. You used me. I corrected, leaning against the kitchen counter, still dry my hair with a towel. There's a difference. Father lunged closer, his fists clenching. You ungrateful little troublemaker. Try it. The words slipped out before I could even censor them. Calm, solid, direct challenge. His hand trembled, but he didn't move. We both knew the truth. He wasn't a fighter. Never was. He was a bully, hiding behind bluster, shouting to mask his own profound fear. What did you do? Mother's voice broke. The cards don't work. Lindsay can't pay her bills. The mortgage. It's all gone. That's right, I nodded. Everything I paid for. Everything I managed. It's over. Father emitted a bitter, humorless laugh. Oh, you think you're so powerful? You think we need you? Seems like you do. I shrugged, gesturing around my apartment. Since you broke in just to beg. Beg? He snarled. You think we're begging? You think enough. I snapped, the single word slicing through his tirade. Enough. I'm done. Mother stepped forward, her hands outstretched in a plea. Please, this is your family. We're all we have. All you have, I corrected. I'm done being your safety net. Your bank. Your doormat. Father's face twisted into a grotesque mask. You little pest. I raised a warning finger. Get out. Now. You can't do this, Mother whispered, tears welling in her eyes. This is cruel. Cruel. I actually laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. Cruel is telling your son he's worthless while spending his money. Cruel is using me like a tool, and then laughing behind my back. Father stepped forward again, but this time I didn't flinch. This time he stopped. His shoulders slumped. "You'll regret this," he muttered, his voice defeated. "You'll come crawling back." "I won't," I said, my voice like tempered steel. They left, slamming the door with a final, desperate flourish. But as I listened to their retreating footsteps fade, I knew. This wasn't the end. Not yet. The very next day, they tried another tactic. Lindsay appeared in my office. I spotted her through the glass partition, her face pale, eyes puffy from weeping. My boss looked confused, then deeply uncomfortable, as she began waving frantically in my direction. I remained at my desk. "Sir," my receptionist stammered, "there's a woman here." "She's nobody," I stated without even glancing up. But Lindsay refused to leave. I watched her animatedly speaking to the receptionist, her voice escalating, her hands trembling with indignation. Eventually, security intervened, politely escorting her out. I knew she'd return. That night, another knock. "My landlord." There's a bit of a situation." He shifted awkwardly. "Your family is downstairs making a scene." He paused, looking utterly perplexed. "Tell them to leave, or I'll call the police." He blinked. "But it's your family." "No," I corrected him. "Not anymore." I watched through the window as they stood there, shouting, gesticulating wildly, until finally security guided them away. But I knew them. I knew their relentless persistence. And I knew that somewhere, in that house I'd abandoned, a black backpack lay waiting for them to open it, to understand just how far I was willing to go. The silence didn't last long. I knew them too well. Silence was merely the calm before the next inevitable storm. For days, I systematically ignored their calls, their incessant texts, their increasingly desperate voicemails. I even skipped work, letting the demanding world fall away as I savored the quiet. But I wasn't naive. I knew they wouldn't surrender easily. It began with Lindsay's tirades, messages seething with venom, blaming me for every misfortune. Mother's tearful voicemails followed, her voice breaking as she implored me to be the bigger person and rescue the family. And then came Father. At first, it was pure rage, threats, insults, their usual predictable noise. But then his tone subtly shifted. Calm, calculated, an insidious invitation. "Son, let's settle this like men. No drama, just you and me. There's a game this weekend. Our team's playing. Come, let's talk it out." A trap. I felt it resonate in my bones. Yet I agreed. I wanted this. So I went. The stadium roared like a living beast. Cheers, screams, the rhythmic pounding of feet on metal bleachers. It was glorious chaos. The perfect arena for secrets to be drowned. Father waited in Section 12, Row F. The seats around him were strangely empty, despite the packed stands. He spotted me instantly, waving with one hand, the other gripping something I recognized. The black backpack. My backpack. I descended the steps, each stride deliberate, my eyes locked onto him. He looked exhilarated, a twisted smile curling on his lips as if he believed he had already won. "Surprised I called you?" he shouted over the din, patting the seat beside him. Finally decided to talk like men. "Huh? Talk." I settled into the seat, my gaze never leaving the backpack cradled in his lap. "Is that what this is?" "Oh, I think it's a bit more than that." He leaned in, his voice dropping, barely audible above the stadium's thunder. "You thought you were so smart, huh? Running away, cutting us off. But you left a little present behind." His fingers drummed against the backpack's fabric. "We found this. And guess what, genius? We know." "Know what?" I asked, keeping my voice as steady as the cold wind whipping across the field. "Your secrets. Your lies. You think you're clean? That you're better than us?" His voice sharpened, a snake's hiss. "You've been hiding things. I should have known. All those times you acted like a saint, like some savior." I almost laughed. "Open it then. Let's see what you think you know." His eyes flashed with a volatile mix of fear and anger. "Don't play games. I don't have to open it. I already know you've been stealing from us, manipulating, pretending to be a good son, while hiding your little stash." "Stash? I leaned back, feeling the cold metal of the seat against my spine. The only stash in there is the truth. The crowd around us erupted as the home team scored. But here, in our small, volatile pocket, there was only silence, tension, and a shaking hand clutching the backpack. "You're bluffing," he muttered, his voice suddenly small. "You're trying to make me doubt, but it's over. We're telling everyone what kind of person you are, how you abandoned your family. Go ahead." I gestured vaguely towards a field. "Tell them all. Tell them how I paid for Lindsay's rent for 2 years. How I covered your debts when you gambled half your pension away. How I bought that phone for your precious granddaughter just before she told me I was nothing." His face darkened, a storm gathering. "Shut up. No, let's make it clear, Dad. You got a bag full of proof of everything I did for you and everything you took. And you still think you have leverage?" His hand tightened around the backpack, his knuckles white with strain. "Don't you talk to me like that." "Like what?" I leaned forward, my voice still calm, but my eyes burning with a controlled fire. "Like the worthless piece of furniture you always treated me as? Like the walking wallet, the errand boy?" "Shut up," he screamed, standing abruptly, drawing a few curious glances from the rows behind us. "Sit down." My voice was ice, and for a fleeting moment, I saw it, the raw fear in his eyes. He hated me. Yes, but more than that, he feared losing his precarious control. Or what? He forced a laugh, thin and desperate. "What are you going to do? Attack your own father? You think anyone here will take your side? You really think they'll take yours?" I gestured to the vast crowd, a sea of strangers who cared nothing for his bluster. "You're just an angry old man with a bag full of debts. And they don't know me, but they don't have to." His face twisted, his voice dropping to a guttural snarl. You egoist." "Egoist?" I smiled, a genuine, mirthless smile. "I was your lifeline, and now you're drowning without me." He swung. I saw it coming. His hand, thick and trembling, aimed for my face. But I didn't move. I didn't flinch. He wanted a reaction, a scandal, incontrovertible proof that I was the villain in his pathetic story. But I simply stared at him, calm, unblinking, and his fist stopped mere inches from my face, quivering violently. "I should have left you on the streets," he whispered, his voice shaking with impotent fury. "You were always a parasite." "Funny," I whispered back, leaning so close I could smell the stale beer on his breath. "That's exactly what I thought about you." Something in him broke then. His hand fell. His shoulders slumped. The cheers of the crowd became a thunderous roar, the perfect cover for the collapse of whatever pride he had left. I reached out, grabbed the backpack, and effortlessly yanked it from his grasp. He didn't even resist. "Do you want to know what's in here?" I asked, my voice carrying clearly, loud enough for the curious people around us to hear. "Everything I did for you, every cent, every sacrifice." People were openly staring now, some whispering, some even raising their phones. "You want the truth?" I unzipped the backpack, pulling out a thick stack of papers. "There it is. Proof of how I carried you, how I paid your bills, how I saved your house from foreclosure twice." His face drained of all color. "And you want to talk about betrayal?" I stood, holding the papers aloft. "You betrayed me the day you turned me into your personal ATM. The day you laughed when they told me I was nothing." "Stop," he whispered, his voice small, his body sinking back into the seat. "No," I declared. "You wanted a scene. You got one." I tossed the papers at his feet, and they scattered, fluttering down the steps like dead leaves. I turned, walking up the steps, past the staring faces, past the whispers. You can't just leave," he shouted, his voice cracking broken. But I didn't stop. I didn't look back. For the first time, his voice meant absolutely nothing. They never stopped trying. Not at first. The day after the stadium, the day Father's pride bled out on those cold metal seats, my phone rang like a persistent alarm. Call after call. Messages flooded in. Accusations, begging, threats, a familiar, desperate cycle. I ignored it all. Father was the first to break. His calls transitioned from furious to pleading in a matter of hours. "We can talk this out." He lied. "I'll forget everything. Let's be a family." But I didn't answer. Then it was Mother. Her texts dripped with manufactured guilt. "You're breaking our hearts. We didn't mean it. Family is all we have. I didn't even bother to read them all. Lindsay tried next. Her messages were pure, unadulterated venom. You're a coward. A selfish, worthless coward. You've ruined everything. Then moments later, a jarring shift. Please, just talk to me. I didn't mean it. I was scared. Don't do this. But I did. Silence. That was my answer. That was my revenge. They didn't understand it at first. They genuinely believed I was bluffing, playing some cruel game. But as the days bled into weeks, as the bills they once blithely ignored began piling up, as their friends subtly stopped taking sides, they finally understood. They couldn't reach me. The landlord at their house called me, stuttering, trying to explain their missed rent payments. I calmly told him that wasn't my problem. Mother sent me a photo of the family, huddled in the dark, a single candle flickering precariously on the table. We have nothing left. I deleted it without a second glance. One evening, as I walked back from the grocery store, I saw him. Father, standing outside my building, pacing like a man undone. His face was pale, his hands shaking, that familiar fire in his eyes replaced with something else. Something colder, more visceral. Fear. He saw me, his face lighting up with a twisted, desperate hope. He rushed forward. Listen, you can't do this. You're my son. No, I didn't slow my pace. I was your wallet. He stepped in front of me, his voice cracking. We raised you. We gave you everything. You used me. I look him dead in the eyes. And now you have nothing. I try to step around him, but his hand shot out, grabbing my arm. You don't get to do this. His voice was a snarl, the old anger bubbling to the surface. You think you're better than us? You think you can just walk away? I know I can. I pulled my arm free, and I did. He swung at me, slow, weak, his attempt pathetic. I didn't even flinch. His fist glanced off my shoulder, more a desperate shove than a punch. He stumbled, catching himself against the side of the building, gasping for breath. Pathetic. The words slipped out, barely a whisper. His face twisted, that familiar rage flaring, but weaker now, like a dying ember. You'll come crawling back. You always do. You're nothing without us. I laughed, a loud, sharp sound that echoed down the quiet street. I was nothing with you, I said, turning my back. I walked away. I didn't look back. That night, I consciously threw my phone into the bottom drawer of my desk and left it there. The messages, the missed calls, they piled up, but they could no longer touch me. A week later, a letter arrived in the mail. Handwritten, shaky script. Mothers, please. Your father is getting sick. Lindsay is losing her mind. We're falling apart. You're the only one who can fix this. Please come home. I crumpled it, unread, without a moment's hesitation. They were falling apart. Good, because for the first time, I wasn't. I didn't move. I didn't change my number. I didn't hide. I stayed exactly where I was. But I stopped being part of their world, and their world crumbled without me. Lindsay's friends stopped answering her calls. Mother's distant relatives, the ones who used to send polite Christmas cards, ignored her now. Father, predictably, lost his temper at work one too many times and was finally fired. But I didn't care. I didn't watch. I lived. I cooked for myself, slept peacefully, went for long, contemplative walks without the gnawing worry of incoming messages demanding my time, my money, my very life. They were just voices now. Ghosts I'd left behind in a burning house, and I was finally, unequivocally free. Months passed, and silence became a cherished companion. I woke when I desired, ate meals without a shadow of guilt, spent weekends exploring the city I'd once ignored, feeling freedom in every quiet, unburdened moment. Sometimes, I still catch myself expecting the familiar buzz of desperate texts, the suffocating weight of guilt, the frantic voice demanding I fix their manufactured chaos. But it never came. I had done the impossible. I had buried them, not in the cold earth, but irrevocably from my life. I walked down Main Street one crisp autumn morning, past the cafe where I used to buy overpriced cakes for Lindsay's birthdays, the boutique where I'd spent a fortune on gifts for my mother, the restaurant where I'd paid for countless family dinners, always so generous until I wasn't. Ghosts. Just ghosts. On the corner, A street musician played a slow, aching melody. His voice was rough, his fingers dancing over the strings. A voice that didn't try to be perfect, only honest. I stopped, letting the music wrap around me. It wasn't about love. It wasn't about heartbreak. It was about letting go. The world moved around me, busy and vibrantly alive. I stood perfectly still, breathing it all in. When the song ended, I tossed a $20 bill into the open guitar case. The musician nodded, a silent acknowledgement, and I smiled. Not because I had to, not because someone expected it, but because I wanted to, and that, I realized, was the profound difference. I didn't need them. I never did. I walked on, each step lighter, each breath easier. As the sun dipped below the rooftops, painting the sky in amber and crimson, I felt it a quiet, undeniable certainty. I was free. I wonder, what would you have done in my shoes? Have you ever been forced to sever ties, to amputate a part of your life, just to save yourself? Share your story below. Perhaps you'll find a piece of your own journey in mine.